Hi, and welcome to Habits for Humans, the podcast that explores what makes people tick and how to program this brain of ours to do what we actually want it to do. We have a really unique topic today. We're going to talk about not just ourselves and our habits, we're going to talk about our responsibility and privilege as humans to take care of some of the animal world as well. We're going to talk about dogs. So if you're a dog lover, I'm right here with you. I'm so excited to welcome Nikki Burnett onto the podcast today. We're going to talk about her area of expertise, which is functional nutrition and all things nutrition. And we're going to take her area of expertise and move it into the dog world and talk about how to best take care of your dog. Kind of a funny story. I was in the middle of a dog problem when I happened to talk to Nikki about our podcast, and we completely changed our topic from what we were going to talk about to talking about dog nutrition. So I'm delighted that Nikki is here with us today. And sometimes these things just work out where you're like, I have a problem, and this person that is magical just drops into your life to solve your problem. So Nikki, thanks for dropping into my life.
Oh, well, I love magical. That makes me really happy.
All
No,
right.
thank you.
Yeah, we're delighted to have you here. I'm your host, Kim Flynn, and today we're going to talk to Nikki Burnett about dog nutrition specifically. So we have a giveaway for our listeners at the end, actually two giveaways today, one from our sponsor, Card Salad, and one from Nikki's company. So I'll let her explain that at the end of our podcast today. But if you like free stuff, stay tuned all the way to the end. First of all, a word from our sponsor. Habits for Humans is brought to you by Card Salad, a health and wellness company that teaches you how to program your brain using systems and habits. So you know how everyone wants to eat healthy? I want to eat healthy. My refrigerator was totally empty yesterday, and I think I ate some cheese, just like took the cheese out of the wrapper and just, gnawed on some cheese because that's all that was in my fridge. So we're going to train you in Card Salad's program how to have a system to always have food in your fridge, always have your recipes planned, your meal planning is done for you, your shopping list is done for you. No more empty fridge syndrome, because empty fridge means you either gnaw on cheese or go to the freezer, and freezer food is not your friend. So, at the end of the podcast today, I have a giveaway from Card Salad for you if you're interested in that. So I'm so excited also to introduce again our lovely guest, Nikki. Nikki is a functional nutritionist and founder of Taste Life Nutrition, a health detective practice. Ooh, I love that. Health detective practice. You have to tell us about that. Nikki's focus is on helping women struggling to get pregnant. She digs for the root cause of their difficulty by lifestyle review and running functional lab testing. She works with her clients as their partner, taking the complicated and making it simple through baby steps and sustainable change. Nikki, we have to talk a little bit about that because it's so dense and juicy and rich. We have to talk about that a little bit, and then we're going to segue right into doggy nutrition. So let's start out with, first of all, one specific practice. We always start the podcast with one specific practice you do to manage the stress of daily life. What do you do, Nikki, on that?
My morning ritual on most days is to get up, to go. My first thing is to say a prayer. I read the Bible, and then I do my visualizations and my manifestation of what I want the future to be and to look like. So it's a lot of talking to God.
Talk to me about what your visualizations and manifestations look like. So everyone has a different practice, and I love hearing other people's practices. Is this looking in the mirror? Is this journaling? What is this?
Actually, it is looking in the mirror, but that's not intentional. That's only because that's sort of where my seat is. I have a little dressing room, and that's where I sit, and I do some writing, but really it's about, what do I want the business to look like? I will think about my clients, especially my super complicated clients, and I'll pray for them and visualize them healthy, and then just, the gratitude, and sometimes I'll just put myself in that place where I want to be. So sometimes it changes a bit, but it's always just that. I think more than anything, and I say this a lot, is the gratitude can change the world. If we're just grateful for the amazing things that we have, even if it's one thing, it's really can make a difference for you and for everybody else around you.
I love that. It sounds like your practice then is much more intuitive and not structured. Some people are like, I do 20 gratitude items a day, and then I visualize these three things. And you are very much in that female space of just whatever comes to me. It's more intuitive.
Very much so. Very much so. I am not a very organized, structured person. There are times when I am, when I'm working with clients, it can be very structured and organized, and I'm, very careful about that. Everything else, I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm pretty easygoing, and whatever comes to me and whatever works and whatever God says, I'm like, okay.
Nikki, I'm learning how to be more like you in this like phase 3 of my life. I have always been extremely structured, very disciplined, and I'm learning how to go into a new space, this version of life, which is more intuitive and less structure and more feminine, and it feels deeply strange, and I'm loving it. I'm loving it.
I think that we can learn from each other. I think that there's definitely a place, and we hit on this a little bit back when we first talked a couple of weeks ago. But there's a place for both, and I think both are important. But we all have our natural tendencies, I think.
This leads straight into the dog conversation. So I'm going to be weird and tell you my dog story. I've got two dogs. One I've had for years, and one I just rescued probably about a month, 6 weeks ago. Not really rescued. She's a Doberman. She's a puppy. Well, she's a year old. And her energy is like chaos and joy and silly and hilarious. So that's her energy. And then I've got this border collie who's disciplined and structure and focus, and she is like intent. She's a working dog. So I have male energy and female energy, and I take them on a walk, and I'm like, this is crazy. It feels like my life personified of like trying to balance those two energies. So here we are today talking about dogs. I'm just going to turn over to you. Tell us what you were telling me about dog nutrition, and we're just going to dive in.
Let's do, because here's the thing. What we are told by big dog food, big food, is that I know better, they know better how to take care of our animals better than we do. They know how to feed them better. They know what they need better. They know about their nutrition better. And we sit back and we say, okay, well, I didn't study dogs, so somebody must know my dog better than I do. And what happens very often is we have a dog who struggles with itching and scratching, and I'm just going to put it out there because it's the truth. They're dying 10, 15, 20 years earlier than they should. And what we're doing is we're feeding our dogs McDonald's every single day, once, twice, 3 times a day for the entirety of their life. Imagine doing that to yourself, eating whatever it is. And I don't mean to point out McDonald's, but there's really not much good about McDonald's.
Except the fries. Come on.
They are pretty good, but also deadly. So what I try to get across to people is it's about food. My pet peeve, pun intended, is that food is human food or people food. My dog doesn't get people food. I'm like, why not? They're supposed to get people food. It's not people food, it's food. They eat food. You put a dog out in the wild, or you look at a wolf, or you look at a gorilla, or they're going to eat what they're naturally meant to eat. All of it is food that we would eat as well. It's vegetables, it's fruit, it's meat. I mean, dogs are going to eat more meat than they are fruits and vegetables, but it's all from the ground. It's all what God created for them to eat. And what we've done as a society, I guess it was done, I don't even remember if it was the 40s or something, that it was determined that making food cheap and chemically processed was the best way to feed the dog. So now what they do is they take, I won't get into it too much because it's really disgusting what they put into this food, this what they call kibble, what they call food. But they take it, and it's horribly sick, other animals, roadkill, on, and then they heat it to such a degree that it is completely dead. And not only is it dead, there is a minimum of 1 carcinogen, or at least 2 carcinogens, in every bag of dog food. Because of the high heat processing. And I don't care if you're paying $500 a pound for this amazing organic kibble, it's potentially deadly, and it's potentially got carcinogens in it. So then it's such a dead food and there's nothing in it. They've got to add nutrients. So you look through the ingredients and you're looking and you're thinking, this is great. It's got vitamin E and vitamin A and vitamin B and B12 and folic acid. Folic acid is synthetic. B12 is more than likely synthetic. All the other nutrients that they're putting in it are very likely synthetic. And so the body looks at those and says, and even for us, if we eat, take synthetic vitamin E or other synthetic nutrients, the body says, I'm not really sure what you want me to do with this. And so that's what's happening with our dogs. So on top of that, and I don't want to talk too much, but I kind of will go a little crazy. On top of that, the fact that it's dry is very unnatural, and feeding them kibble keeps them perpetually dehydrated. I mean, it's really hard on their little body to eat this food. You can look at, the potential for all of the different toxicities, the heavy metals that can be in it, the potential for rancidity. You open up a bag, you put it in, you keep it open, or you put it in a little trash can looking thing, and it's oxidized by the air, and then over time it's going to oxidize, and you then are just creating much more of an issue, which creates oxidative stress for the dog. It creates physical stress, which creates mental and emotional stress. Then do we have dogs that have anxiety and the crazy issues and aggression and these things that they deal with beyond the physical manifestations, the mental and emotional manifestations that can help a dog that we think, why is my dog like this and he wasn't a month ago, or he was fine when he was young, but now we've got this dog doing these crazy things, or my dog is 5 years old and already has hip dysplasia. We can go on and on. And last thing, not the last thing, but you go to what the age that dogs are supposed to live to, it should be like 25 to 35 years old. And I constantly hear, well, my dog's 10, so he's getting old. And it hurts my heart. And I've lost my dogs early as well. I mean, it was because of my dogs that I've learned. But they're supposed to live much longer than we give them credit for, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So many,
Mm-hmm.
so many comments and questions. That was
Mm-hmm.
brilliant. So here's my comments, then we'll go into questions. So
Yeah.
comments are, it sounds almost like formula for babies. Did that come out in what, the 50s or 70s or something? And
Mm-hmm.
everyone was told that your breast milk is not good, it's passé, and to switch over. And and now we know the exact opposite is true. And now look at the baby formula that's in very short supply in the news, all over the news right now. And so I don't know, just it feels very similar to that. It feels like in 10
Mm-hmm.
years we'll come out and say, oops, just kidding, kibble is terrible, do not feed your dogs that, even though my vet told me that last week. I'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah.
I also appreciate that you talked about adding the nutrition or the nutrients back in, kind of like white bread. You think, oh, riboflavin is added and all this stuff is added, so therefore it's good for me. Yeah, it's because there's nothing in there of value. So just wanted to hit
Mm-hmm.
on that. And then also it was thinking about all of the people on the planet have food sensitivities, diet sensitivities, and we're not taking that into consideration at all when we have our dog. Um, and I am so fascinated by the dog longevity comment. I actually have not looked into this at all. Do you know of any studies or research that says, or even like about wolves that they lived 25 to 35 years? I don't know anything about this. So tell me more about that.
So, and I probably should have something to back me up. What I know is, at this point, who we know in recent history, there was a dog in Australia, and granted, this is one dog, right? But there was a dog in Australia that lived to be 38, I think. And the dog ran every day. It ate the food from it lived on a farm. It ate, from the cows. It ate what it was supposed to eat every day. It was also protected, right? It's a dog. It's not in the wild, so it eats what it's supposed to eat on top of being protected. You go out in the wild, there are going to be other factors for sure. You have, other animals that you have dog fights or wolf fights. They're not the predators necessarily, but they will, the males will fight each other. So, you know, if they're protected, I think, and they're fed what they're supposed to have, I think that the longevity is significantly more. What we also need to take into consideration, and this is another nerdy thing that's both human and dog for me that I just love, and we've talked about it just a bit, but it's epigenetics. And so just real briefly, we know what our genetics are. Essentially, it's our, skin color, hair color, these things. Our epigenome are locations that are on top of our genes that have the ability to turn on and off due to lifestyle factors. So food, stress, trauma, life in general, toxic load, the environment, all of these things that play a role in breaking down the body, or building up the body. You can take it either way. So epigenetically, we as humans, we can see that, well, in the study, the research does show, I learned this at a conference, so I don't have the study, but I could find one, I'm sure. But that our health, or lack thereof, can express 7 generations down.
Wow.
It's amazing. It is. And so you think about that with dogs, and with the shorter life that they have, think about the way that we've been feeding them over the many generations that we've had them. Like I said, probably started in, I don't know, 30s or 40s, say industrial revolution-ish, which is also when our foods, started going and turning into fake food as well. But because of this massive influx of fake food for them, their epigenetically, their lifespan is now much shorter because of that. Even if we were to, if I found a dog in the wild, that might be a different story. A dog in the wild eating normal food, and we bring it home, it might not have those epigenetics. But dogs that we get here, that we rescue, that are bred, they have the genetics of the former generations, or the epigenetics of the former generations, which likely is going to cut their lifespan down. I asked that question. I actually, for my own podcast, I have a vet who's coming on. Her name's Dr. Dodds, and I'm super stoked because she's like big time in the functional veterinary world. And it's like, this is super cool. But I asked her that question. It's like, can we change this? And she said, not really. There's too much damage already done from the past damage. It really is. It's heartbreaking. But as the eternal optimist, what if we were to keep talking about this and keep spreading the word, which is why I want to do my preconception course. And I want people to learn and to know about themselves and their bodies, and the amazing impact that we can have on our future health of our dogs, on our future health of our kids, which again, it can change the world. And I know it's, whatever, Nikki, I mean, why not think big, right?
I love your passion, and that's how you found like what your passion is. Because if you can take it all the way back to from this to we can change the world, you've hit it. You hit it. Okay, so let's talk about feeding our dog something besides kibble. So I did do some Google searching on this when I was switching over my dog and thinking, okay, how do I do this? And I read a lot of websites that talked about there's a lot of bone in a wolf's normal diet. And that's what humans don't eat. We don't eat all the bone. And so we have to be very conscientious of making sure that they have like bone stuff in there. And the more I read, the more I was like, oh my goodness, this sounds like a nightmare. Like I can't just feed my dog lasagna and casserole. It has to be like this mix of like go to the butcher and ask for bones and that kind of thing. And so I'm kind of in the middle right now, Nikki, where I'm putting eggs in her food and I'm putting olive oil in her food, and I'm trying to do something, but I'm not there yet. So talk to me about what the plan is if it's not kibble.
So you can do it in a number of different ways. And so I'll try to go through a couple of them, and then people can figure out what works best for them. But oh my gosh, my journey, I have done it so many different ways. From I bought a grinder.
Wow, that's committed. That's committed.
My dog had cancer. And I was like, what is this? What can I do? I can't do this anymore. I started him. So I'll back up just real quick. to give a little bit of a view of me and my why. I'm a dog person, always have been. And when my husband and I got married, we went and adopted these two boys. And I'm going to really try not to cry. It's been several years, and I talk about him, and it still happens. But I didn't know any better at the time, so this was in '05. We adopted these boys, the most amazing dogs in the world, and we started them out on kibble. And I started doing research, and I was like, there's got to be something better than kibble. I had been studying nutrition just on my own, not a nutritionist. And I just thought, there's got to be more. I'm going to start researching. So I just started playing with it and giving them, other things and just playing with it. But still, the entire time probably through diagnosis of my first dog, osteosarcoma, I still had kibble on the floor. If they ate it when they wanted to, but I gave them really good food. So at diagnosis, if I was floored. He was 10. And I thought, I've been feeding my dog well. I've been doing all of these things. What is going on? My heart was broken. And I just thought, how is this possible? So I just dug in more. And it was because of these boys that I am doing what I do now. And then I love this so much because it can make a difference. Now, it didn't make a difference with my boys. They were my guinea pigs. And I hate to say that about them, but it's how we learn. We're not expected to be born and know everything. It's part of life. And I get that and I accept it and I hate it a little bit. But we all know they're not going to be with us forever. So with that being said, I thought, okay, I'm not feeding them all the things that they need. I wasn't feeding them bone. I wasn't feeding them organ meat. I dug in as deep as I could. And so I did. I like, they have to have bone and I don't know any other way of doing it. So I'm going to buy a grinder. Talk about a pain. It was horrible. I did it and it was fine. And it, it was a lot. I still have the grinder. I haven't used it in forever. So at that, I did feed them bone. I actually fed them full chicken legs. I do not recommend this because if you don't know your dog, you don't want to feed them full chicken legs. And I'm going to say this one more time. Don't go out and just feed your dogs raw chicken legs. My dogs were very careful. They knew what they were doing. When it comes to bone, we need to understand that we cannot feed cooked bone. And I don't recommend feeding cooked meat at all, any cooked food. The reason is, and to get off the bone a little bit, but any cooked meat that has fat in it, cooked fat is oftentimes is too hard on the pancreas. They can't digest it. And so we have this epidemic of pancreatitis in dogs. Part of it can be because of the food. Part of it can be because of we're cooking their food. Part of it where they're getting cooked fat. It's not the meat, it's the fat. And then part of it, and this came from a vet, this isn't coming from me, but I don't doubt it, is the over vaccination. Because we're upregulating their immune system. They don't need to be vaccinated the way that they do. We can do titers. It's a whole other topic. And so I just understanding that what we're doing with their immune system as we vaccinate on top of the unhealthy foods, it's just that perfect storm. And I dealt with pancreatitis with one of my dogs as well. And it's not fun, and it can be acute, it can be chronic. And so,
I'm
go
dying to
ahead.
hear
Yeah.
that. So you started out with the grinder and the meat, and you're saying no full, just raw chicken legs. What do you do now after all the trials? What do you do?
So I apologize. I got off track. It's
You're
easy.
totally fine. I'm so fascinated. I'm like, tell me more.
So what I do, I'll do one of two things. I do have a butcher here close by who will he will grind up, or she will grind up meat, bone, and organ, and I'll buy it that way. And it's fairly inexpensive and it makes it easy. And then so for me, I'll add in a little bit of veg, maybe some berries. I'll add in chicken feet. Chicken feet are amazing for dogs. They're amazing treats for dogs.
Where do you
I'll
buy
add in
chicken feet? Just at the grocery store?
the butcher. The
Oh, the
butcher.
butcher again. Okay, I need to make friends with the
Mhm.
butcher then, is what I'm hearing.
You
Okay, keep
should.
going.
You really
Okay,
should. Yeah.
okay.
And so the other important thing is organ meat. The organ meat is just as important as regular meat, maybe more important because it's so much more nutrient dense. And the key to remember with this is you can, all organ meat is good. I'm talking, testicles and brains and tongues and all of the things that maybe we don't think about. But for dogs, they have to have beef liver because of the copper content of the beef. It matches what the dog needs.
It's what wolves would have eaten in the wild. They would have eaten the whole animal. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And so with that being said, to kind of jump on that, is what typically they will do is they'll go after the animal, they'll open up the intestines and they'll eat the intestines. So they're getting probiotics, they're getting fiber, they're getting digestive enzymes. They don't have their own digestive enzymes. At least it's not optimal. I mean, they've got a pancreas, but they don't have optimal digestive enzymes. So they have to count on the animal that they take down to get their probiotics and their digestive enzymes. And then the fiber, of course, is the food that they ate, but it's also their hair or their fur.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, super interesting stuff. So dogs are omnivores, but they need mostly meat. And we have to think about these other components in order to give them a full nutrient dense meal that is going to support them. They have to have digestive enzymes. I give them probiotics. I also will do some other supplements. We don't need to talk about that right now, but understanding when I have a dog who comes to me who is dealing with GI distress. I had a dog on death's bed. The vet was like, I don't know what else to do. It was horrible. And it was all a gut issue. And so I said, okay, well, we're going to feed them low fat meat, still raw meat, but like turkey, chicken, these low fat types of meat. We're going to put on digestive enzymes, fish oil, cod liver oil, probiotics. It might have been, bless you, might have been about it. I think we modified as we went on, but in order to get the gut back in order, we had to supplement these things. The dog is alive. The dog is great. The dog is doing amazingly well. I think he probably turned a corner within days. The most amazing thing with dogs is the how quickly their health will turn around when you start feeding them what they're supposed to eat.
Wow.
It's bizarre, and it's
Okay.
almost every time.
So fascinating. I'm loving this. You said there's two different ways you feed dogs. One is you go to the butcher, you get the whole meat, the big blend with the bone and the organs and the meat. What's the second way?
So the second way, and what I found to be my favorite way, and it's a little bit, sometimes it's more expensive, sometimes it's not. I always try to think about the animal that's being eaten. It's in me. I mean, my master's is in animal science. I believe that animals are supposed to be treated well, grass-fed. We are here to serve them because they serve us. So I say this understanding, though, that we can't always go buy pasture-raised chickens to feed our dogs because that's a lot of meat. So take that for what you want. But I have found that I like chicken thighs, only the chicken thigh, because you can take it, you can cut, I take a butcher knife and I just chop it in pieces. And they're fairly large pieces, not fairly large. I'll tell you, my typical chop on the bone is about 3 chops, maybe 4. So bite-sized-ish.
And this is for all size dogs or obviously just bigger dogs?
Big-ish. Mine, I have 230 and 150. And so I would say if you have tiny dogs, it's a lot of chopping. So I would consider that. And we'll talk about another way of doing this without doing bone. Bone is always best. That's what they're meant to eat. But we'll talk about something else here in just a second. So I'll chop that and then I'll add liver. If I can't find liver, then I have liver treats. They're freeze-dried liver treats and they're beef liver treats. And so I will do that. I'll add chicken feet and then other supplements. I want to talk about vegetables for a minute. Dogs are not meant to eat a lot of fruit and vegetables, but because they don't get hair, they are meant to eat some, but they don't digest it well. So taking whatever you're feeding them, I personally do a lot of cruciferous vegetables. I don't do a lot of carrots because they're pretty sugary. They don't do sugar well. They don't do carbs. I'm going to say that again. Do not feed them white rice. Don't feed them oatmeal. Don't feed them I mean, sweet potatoes occasionally, but they do not do well with carbohydrates. This is how we push our dogs into diabetes and these other chronic conditions because they're not meant to eat carbohydrates, except for a few vegetables, which is their fiber. And so I'll do a lot of cruciferous vegetables. I'll do lettuces and spinach and kale. Um, and then I might do a few blueberries or a few raspberries, but not a lot. And really, that's only about 20% of their meal. The rest is, I think it's 20% veg, 10% organ meat, and maybe it's 20%. I'm not a super stickler on it as long as I know that they're getting good ratios, kind of like with myself.
I think about like with your kids too. Like I can't imagine, having my kids and saying, okay, where are we 20% today, or where, and so
Right.
maybe we can loosen up a little bit on that because that's what was so intimidating when I was reading that article. It was like, so you convert it into pounds and you weigh it all out, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'll just feed it kibble because it's such a nightmare. And so then I'm like, okay, when we go too far and too extreme, we end up just bagging the whole thing. So I'm loving what you're saying. Chicken thighs chopped, add liver, chicken feet, and some veggies. And there we've got a plan. And that's the plan, yeah?
Mhm. Yeah, that's pretty much the plan. And it's fairly easy. It doesn't take long. I've got 3 dogs. It might take me 15 minutes, if I'm doing it that way. So yeah, it's having an idea. And I'll tell you what I use. I cheat a little bit. There's an app called Raw Pet. And in Raw Pet, you can put in the size of the dog, you can put in the age of the dog, and how many times you want to feed the dog, and it'll tell you how much bone, liver, organ, other organ, and meat that dog needs. And then you watch the ribs. So if their ribs start to disappear, then you're feeding too much. If the ribs or if you're seeing too much rib, then you need to feed some more. I always, every day I'm looking at their ribs and I'll adjust just based on what they're doing.
That's great feedback for humans too. Like just look in the mirror. If you're getting the chubs, eat less. Don't worry about the scale, the damn scale. Put that thing away and just look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I getting too skinny or not?
Yeah, maybe not eat less, but maybe eat better.
I like it. I like it. That's better. That's better. Thank you, nutritionist. I appreciate that. Okay, the last question, and then we got to wrap up here, and that is, I am intimidated by the thought of finding a butcher. Like, I just go to my local grocery store. Do I talk to the teenager that works in the deli? Like, who is the butcher? Do I need to go find a butcher shop? Do they exist since 1880? What are we talking here? What's the butcher?
Butcher shops are everywhere.
Oh, are they?
Everywhere.
I don't even know
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, I think I have 3 around me. And no 4 that are fairly close. So
Okay.
they are. Not everybody is going to do what I'm doing, but what I hope is, as I talk more about dogs and dog food, there are scraps to these animals that we eat. There are scraps that go unused. There's bone dust, like literally bone dust that can be picked up, and that we can. I need to say this, that we can use instead of having to grind the bone or chop the bone. If you go get bone dust, if it's possible, not everybody can, but if you or you can request it. My dad just started doing this. My dad didn't know anything, and so he's gone to his butcher and developed a relationship, and he's getting the good stuff, and he's getting bone dust. So you start to hopefully develop the relationships. You get the scraps, maybe, hopefully. You get the organ meats if you can. And you start to it's not an easy habit to get into. You have to just like anything else, the systems, you create systems which help you to create habits. And it is, yes, go to your butcher. They're going to be your best bet, and maybe the grocery store, but find the best quality meat that you can afford. Give them fish oil for sure, because that's going to help decrease the inflammation that any conventional animal that they eat will increase. Lastly, I want to make sure that I hit on this too, is eggs and egg shells. So you can give them the egg. Egg shells are really good for mineral content. It's not as good as bone, because it just doesn't have the same mineral content. But if you just cannot find bone, or if it's intermittent, which it is sometimes for me, then I'll crack the egg and I'll crush up the eggshell, and I'll put it in their food with them. And then that lining that lines the eggshell is full of hyaluronic acid and is really good for the joints.
Awesome. Oh my, I could talk to you for 2 more hours.
Let's do it.
Um, Nikki, thank you so much. Will you share with us in our last few minutes here what you have for our people? What you have to give to our peeps?
Yeah. So this is going to be for humans or for dogs. It doesn't matter to me, but reach out to me and we'll set up a time to do a free 30-minute consultation on anything. If you have GI issues, if you have dog issues, if you have fertility issues, if you have autoimmune issues, all of those things are things that I love to deal with and to talk about and totally nerd out on. So I'm happy to help and to be a resource.
Super generous of you. So just want to encourage everyone, if you're feeling Nikki and need some help, the pregnancy thing is a great service that you offer. Wow.
Thank you.
So just want to encourage our listeners, if you know someone or if you yourself are struggling with any of those issues, to take advantage of Nikki's very generous offer. Check in our show notes, whether on the website or any of the podcast channels that we're on. Check in the show notes and you'll find all of her links. And so check her out there. A giveaway from our sponsor, Card Salad. Go to habitsforhumans.com if you're on Nikki's page right now. Just look below her video and sign up for a free 7-day Eat Real Foods challenge. It's 7 days of real food recipes and a done for you shopping list. Your meal planning can be completely done for you for a week. So thank you, Nikki, so much for joining us. That was fascinating, and I'm so excited. You just changed my dog's life right now. You just changed my
Yay!
dog's lives. Yeah. So I'm
Good.
gonna also find a butcher, and a candlestick maker, and and I don't know, a blacksmith. It feels like that's so old fashioned, but maybe they're out there. So I'm gonna trust you. I'm gonna find a butcher, have a relationship with my butcher, and ask for scraps and bone dust and a mix of meat and bone and organs. And I bet he or she would know even better than I would what to feed my dog when it comes to butchering animals. So thank you, Nikki, so much. Thanks to our listeners. This is Habits for Humans, the podcast that teaches you how to program your brain and your body to maximize your potential and your doggo's potential. So thank you in advance for giving us a positive review. And thank you, Nikki. Thanks, everyone.